What's up, everyone? Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. Make sure you go to PASreport.com, subscribe, and follow the podcast so you never miss an episode, and share this episode with your family and friends and on social media. I have a great guest lined up for today. I have New York City Councilwoman Vicky Paladino, the only real fighter that New York has. And so I'm so glad to welcome her in. Dear friend, Vicky, how are you today?
I'm good, Nick. Thank you very much for having me. Like you said, we're good friends. I'm looking forward to doing this podcast with you.
Well, you're in the belly of the beast, right? You're in New York City, you're in a sea of blue, and every day's a struggle, every day's a battle. Now, as a city councilwoman, when you look at what's going on with New York City, even the state of New York and the country, what are your thoughts? What comes to mind?
What comes to mind is absolute disarray. We're disjointed. Nothing seems to be working because we're not enforcing any laws. It's everybody's very contentious. It's not a good atmosphere at all. It's not healthy. Not
And
healthy. A lot of negativity.
what are your constituents saying?
My constituents, thank God, are within I have a great mixture of Democrats and Republicans. And when I say a great mixture, that means they're open thinkers, common sense thinkers. I don't have an uphill battle anymore with the Democrats in my district because they're fed up with what's going on. So I am that ship in the night sort of thing where I navigate through the waters that we've never been in before. And I try to do that with the common sense thinking, which appeals to everybody, because if you're of common sense, no matter what DR or an independent, or as they're known now as blanks, which is rather insulting, but that's another story. They are fed up, they're tired, and they really, really want to just hear someone speak logically.
Yeah, I think that's actually important because you don't see a lot of logic in this day and age. I mean, when we look at the illegal immigrant crisis in the United States, we see the cities under massive pressure, but at the same time, we see these people getting hotel stays, they're getting food. Just I think it was a week ago, you had someone demanding new food because they didn't like the food and their children wouldn't eat. And I saw a little clip. Um, what's up with this sense of entitlement? I mean, people should be gracious that we've offered so much. I mean, I'm not getting $1,000 a month debit card.
Oh, you're not? No.
No,
And you're not
unfortunately.
getting towards that. Actually, it's 1,500.
Oh
It's
boy.
between 1,350 and 1,500 on a trial basis, which always makes me laugh because trial always goes to permanent. You got to really read through the lines here and what these little innuendos mean. Like, for example, never going to end. That's what it really means. Just take out temporary and make it never going to end. What's happening here is in city council, when we do these hearings, and last week's hearings were for the countries out of Africa. And in that particular hearing, which upset me terribly, was the fact, like you said, entitlement, but just not entitlement. It was the way in which they phrased things. We're racist. We are the name calling. I mean, not one person said, I'm grateful to be in America. Thank you. My food is no good. Your food is no good. Why? Well, it's not what we eat, so you're racist. Nick, they went to tampons. And because in these shelters, they get feminine hygiene products. And you should know better than to give us tampons because we, women of the Congo or Africa, whichever country they were from, we're supposed to know that if we give you a free package of feminine hygiene products, if they include tampons, it's racist. This thing was off the charts. They were arrogant, rude, everything you could possibly say. Because I sat there stunned, and what was worse was when you watch the members of council, because it was a joint committee hearing. It was immigration and hospitals. I sit on the hospitals committee. So you're listening to them talk. What was more alarming were my colleagues who seemed to agree with them. And it was just, I can't take, I mean, I do take it because I want to fight, and I do, for what's right. But when you listen to and understand that we're the minority as far as numbers in the council, 51 seats, of which 41 of them are off the wall, it's a little disheartening. So I want to be that voice for the people. And now my voice has reached far, far outside council and District 19. It's being heard everywhere because it seems like when it comes to speaking one's mind, you're supposed to follow a certain protocol, which I do, because otherwise they'll shut you down. But when it comes to it, you got to say what's got to be said. People need to know someone out there's on your side.
Well, I think it's really important. You know, you have millions of households under the Biden economy that are struggling. They're struggling to put food on the table. They're struggling to pay their bills. And then you have millions of people coming over, and you see that arrogance, that disregard. But even worse, you see elected officials that are there to serve the public. They're there to serve the citizens of New York, the residents and the citizens of the United States. And yet it seems like we're an afterthought. It seems like we don't matter anymore. So I think your voice is so important because you're the person that says, no, you do matter. And you go around, you go not just in your district, but throughout New York City, the five boroughs, and you speak to ordinary people. Are you starting to notice a change in the mindset of the people compared to, let's say, 10 years ago?
Oh, definitely so. Because 10 years ago, you were left, you were liberal, you were never going to vote Republican. Oh my goodness. You were just never going to color in that little dot if you were a Republican, just because you were Republican. What you see now is after in the city anyway, after 8 years of de Blasio, and him
Goodness.
completely killing you. I honestly, Nick, did not think a city as great as New York can be killed in 8 years, and he did it. He did it. He managed to do it. He stripped our
That's what
agency.
happens when you smoke pot every day as a mayor of
That's
New York
exactly
City.
right. That's exactly. He takes a little. I mean, he was notorious for that. He would not never be up before 10 in the morning. You know, he did not take his job seriously at all, and he didn't give a damn about the regular person. You know, he defunded our police. He started with what's her name, Melissa Viverito. She was the first speaker before Corey Johnson in his administration. She's as far left and as you could get, and she was his. Forget it. So it was them, and it was Corey Johnson. But the difference in that city council, I found out now, being a council person, was that the members of the council, Democrat and Republican, did speak to each other. That's an interesting thought, because we in the city council of today, the class of 21, I call us, because we won in 21, we replaced 31 council members in 21. We all got reelected again in 23. So I call us the class of 21. Now we're getting used to each other. So there is conversation, not with the radicals that they call themselves the squad of the city council. And those were the ones that were up at Columbia University, your Tiffany Cabans, your Sandy Nurses, your Crystal Hudsons, your Adriana Viles, and the likes of them. They all had their fist in the air wearing the black and white scarves at Columbia. I'm talking about the other ones. We have conversation now. I think we had to break the ice. I think it took some time to break the ice, and the ice has been broken. But here's the thing. When you have to vote, why are you voting aye when you really don't believe it? So that troubles me, because the Democrats are being shortchanged by their own representation. They listen to what they say when they speak. You know, there was an article about one of my city council people in the Queens Chronicle this week, for example. I just got it today, and I'm mentioned in that article at great length, and so is she. And she doesn't vote that way, though. She sounded very moderate. my Democrat colleague, but she does not vote that way. So that's very disheartening. And some of them really should, frankly, join the Common Sense Caucus. We have a Common Sense Caucus. And we are going to be losing members in 25. They term limit out. So we're going to drop down in numbers. They need us now. We're 9 people.
Yeah,
We,
well, I mean,
we
it's
should take a
terrible
stand.
the way the city is headed. It doesn't have money. It's broke. Now we have billions of dollars being allocated to people that shouldn't be here. You see things, campus, Columbia University, as you brought up, and you're seeing these, I don't call them protests. They're radical extremist movements that are going on where they're chanting death to America. Now, as a native New Yorker, as someone that's been here your whole life, that, 15 minutes to the city, go to Manhattan to go see the World
Mhm.
Trade Center.
Mhm.
Did you ever envision a time where you would hear Americans on American soil at American college campuses chanting death to America, long live Hamas, October 7th, 10,000 times? How disgraceful is that?
It's beyond disgraceful. It's sickening. This is an organized movement that is paid for by who? Okay, there are everything. They're putting these kids forward on the grounds of anti-Semitism. That's how it all started, October 7th. And when I talked about it after October 7th, we got to the marathon, the New York City Marathon. I can tell you the exact date of the interview. It was November the 4th. And I went on with Eric Shawn on Fox. And I told him, I said it, listen, they wanted to set up autonomous zones throughout the marathon. So the or the anti-Israel, pro-Gaza, Palestine, pro-Palestine, they could actually do what they want to do on the marathon. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So I said to him, no, 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 no. Take that away. That's not the point. You see, what they want to do is they are disruptors. And they want to disrupt. Now, it sounds like small potatoes back then, the New York City Marathon. I said, no, look past that at what's coming down the pike. This is going to lead to bigger things. These are terrorist cells that they have set up in our country, on our land, right here in New York. Because when we had crossing the border with no kind of vetting or anything, we have terrorists coming in. This is just the start, Eric. This is just the start. And here we are, fast forward. It's 6 months later. It's April, end of April 2024. This was November 4th, 2023. And we've got organized disruptors chanting hate to America. This is anti-Western culture. They want to kill us from within. They want us gone, our democracy, what we stand for. They hate from the pit of their stomach. And people have to understand, crystal clear, have to understand, it started with one thing. And for them to say October 7th, 12,000 times over, and martyrdom, I am sorry. Shut them down now. What
Yeah.
are we waiting for?
Well, when you inhibit people's freedom of movement, when you impede their ability to attend in-person classes, when you assault, harass, or threaten, it's no longer a protest. And so they should
Right.
be shut down. And it's frightening to watch when you see American colleges and universities that have been pushing anti-Americanism for years. This is the result. But you have your ear to the ground and you're regularly in contact with the mayor's office. Uh, is there fear that something is going to happen, a terrorist attack? Is there any fear that it's only a matter of time because of the open border?
I don't get that from the mayor's office at all. No. For me and for others like us, you, Nick, me, other citizens, we have to have that in back of our heads. I mean, it's becoming more and more obvious. When Omar, whatever the hell her name is from Congress, she goes up to Columbia yesterday because her daughter was homeless, okay, because she got arrested. Cry me a river. And that's another thing. They say from the river to the sea. Ask them what river and ask them what sea, and they wouldn't be able to tell you. So when Omar goes up there and she says, you know, we are gleefully protesting. We are happy to be doing this. This is a United States Congresswoman whose daughter is following in her footsteps at Columbia University, home of the elitists, home of the ivory tower liberals, home of the professors that actually were from my generation. You know, radical extremism back then didn't exist. We called them hippies. We called them liberal thinkers, you know, but now these are the people teaching the kids. So the indoctrination started decades and decades ago. And now we're reaping what has been sown. So, you know, they graduated the Tiffany Cabans. They graduated all these people who are now in their 30s and 40s and those that came before them. Luckily, I never fell into that, ever.
Well, it goes to show
So,
you, don't elect radicals because this is what
no,
you
that's
get.
exactly right. I mean, half these people were at Woodstock. I mean, give me
Now, are you concerned that 2024 summer's coming up? Do you think we're going to get a repeat of what it was like in 2020? And is there talk within the NYPD? Are they fearful that we're going to see a repeat of 2020 and the fiery but peaceful protests?
the protesters said it themselves that we're going to make 2020 look like a day at the beach, more or less. They didn't use day at the beach, but it's going to be far worse. So I always worry. When I see this out of control, and now it's going all over the country. You know, we got our CUNYs here doing it now. It's like they're just falling into lockstep. Somebody's organizing them. This
Absolutely.
is organized. This is organized. And that's what makes me very scared. Scared for our police, scared for our citizens. We saw what they were capable, organized criminal activity such as this, inside terrorism, homegrown terrorists. We saw what it did in 2020 because BLM was a terrorist group. It was categorized as a terrorist group. And we could see what's going to happen here if our police cannot shut this down. And our police, you know, we saw them make a few, you know, they made 100 arrests. Columbia's president actually invited our police department onto the campus where they did make, I think, 100 arrests. I heard one of our top brass on Channel 7 say, when they got onto Columbia's campus and they went into one of the buildings, do you know who was the worst? The professors. They had hand linked themselves together. They made a link fence, arm in arm, and it was harder to break them than it was the kids. So their professors were doing this. So I quickly texted him and I said, I just saw you on channel 7. You know, you spoke articulately, you spoke clearly, and you did a very good job. But we got to protect our cops. We can't see this a repeat performance. The writing's on the wall, in my opinion. You know, but for it to come out of the administration, it would sound like fear mongering. And that's not what I want to do. But at the same time, if we don't get this under control, I think we're left people to their own devices to say, what the hell's going to happen here now?
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
And listen, reality is reality. You know, you can't sugarcoat what's going on. New York City
Correct.
is in trouble, and it's America's best city. That's the
Mhm.
reality. We suffered under COVID. You have all those businesses that left Manhattan and the five
Mhm.
boroughs. They went to other states, cheaper states, less income coming in. You have the commercial real estate market that looks
Mhm.
like it's going to collapse. You have increasing in crime, and the crime, what makes a lot of people fearful is that it's random crime. You know, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, it was targeted. You knew the areas to stay away from. It was
Right.
mostly gang violence. Now you're walking, minding your own business, and someone comes behind you and hits you with a bat. But then you have all these morons out there saying, oh, no, that's not real. That's just, you know, right-wing talking points. That's not really happening in the city. They live far away from the city. They may go in once a year, maybe to see a play, and then they leave. They don't live there, but they say it's a fiction of people's imagination. There's not really migrants all over the place setting up shop and selling stolen goods. There's not really prostitutes walking the street, no random crime. What do you say to those people?
Oh my God. What would I like to say to those people? And what I do say, first of all, I call them ivory tower liberals. I have relatives who live in those ivory towers, by the way. And I often say, walk with me on the floor, on the ground, the boots on the ground, and walk and see for yourself. But what you brought to the forefront here was people pretending it doesn't exist. We have that happening in our government in city right now and state government right now. You know that those cops that got beat up in Times Square by those migrants when they tried to stop the shoplifting that was
Yeah,
going on, they were beaten to a pulp. Would you have known if that happened? It did happen, but if they didn't videotape it, the only reason why anybody found out about that brutal beating up of our police officers was because somebody actually recorded it and it went viral.
absolutely.
The reason there is a veil over things here. We hear everybody say, oh no, it's not that bad. Come on, you live here. And the best is, and I kind of chuckle at this, when I'm in city council, and I'll hear one of my members, an older member, say something like, I need all the smoke shops shut down. But you're the one that said they were okay. What do you have, buyer's remorse?
Well,
You
it's like
know,
bail reform, right? I mean, we see the same
oh,
thing.
Carl Hasty, is that his name? The leader of the
Yep.
state assembly, when he stood in the center of the floor 2 weeks ago and he said, I don't want to touch, we're not touching bail reform or anything to do with any kind of relation to this. Because punishment for a crime does not deter anybody from committing a crime. So here, let's put it in simple terms. How ridiculous is that? You have a 5-year-old and she puts her hand on the stove and you tell her, don't touch the stove, you're going to get burned, right? She touches the stove anyway, she gets burned. You wrap her hand up and you put her on a chair for 5 minutes and you let her sit there, you set the minute timer. That's punishment for something for not listening, right? So
And
it's
that
like, think
5-year-old
about
will
it as
never
a
make that
toddler.
mistake again.
That's right. They won't make that mistake again. So here you have the leader of the assembly saying, we cannot change this. We cannot change that. We need to keep it the way it is because it doesn't deter anybody from committing a crime. I tend to differ with that mindset.
Well, not only forget about the deterrence, at least it keeps the criminals off the streets that keep on victimizing the same communities over and over and over again, where people now can't even walk into a store, buy what they want, and leave. Now they have to ask the clerk to go get it and spend another 10, 15, 20 minutes in the store.
And
Completely
those stores are
ridiculous.
going out of business. My CVS went in to buy a tube of toothpaste. She only had one tube of toothpaste behind that loose sight thing with the lock. Once she gave me the toothpaste, she had to go in the back storeroom to put out one more tube of toothpaste. And these criminals you're talking about are mostly, are a great deal of migrants. Okay, illegal immigrants that have come to this country. We are turning New York into the world's largest soup kitchen. And if you want to look even closer, you could actually say New York City, the greatest city in the world, is becoming a third world country because there are crimes that are being committed here that, like you brought out, all over now. There used to be targeted areas that you knew to stay away from. No, these migrant shelters are everywhere and they spill out. We've got these gangs from Venezuela that are mixing with our M13 gangs here. And you can, we're lucky here in District 19. I tell everybody, be very grateful for living where you live. Because if you just go a couple of miles away, Corona, they got prostitution like you don't even want to know. That go down Roosevelt Avenue in Corona. It's not even Times Square in the 70s.
No.
You've got all Guatemalans, you've got Asian, you've got every walk of life. All these young girls, 12, 13, 16, 18, and a little older, and they're lined up. They're not just like one scattered here, one scattered there. It's a straight city block of prostitute after prostitute that you could literally walk up and say, I'll take you. And then your friend could take her. You could come back later, find this. It's out of control. Out
Yeah.
of control. And watch what happens with that. They'll legalize prostitution because whenever anything gets too much to handle, to make it simpler, we'll just legalize it.
Well, that's like AOC saying we don't have an illegal immigration problem. We have a legal immigration problem. Just legalize everyone and the
That's
issue
it.
goes away.
That's what
It
they
really
do.
is crazy. I mean, when you look at everything happening, but that's why we need 50 more Vicky Paladinos over in the city council, because I don't know how much New Yorkers are going to be able to withstand this. But at the same time, the people are at fault. New Yorkers need to get engaged. They need to look at their politicians that are in office that have created this problem and actually turn out to the polls and vote them out of office. That's going to be the only solution to this.
And I agree. And I don't want to hear anybody say, why bother voting? It doesn't matter. Because now you just gave the vote to the other side. You just gave up your right and you just surrendered. You surrendered. Trust me when I tell you, your vote matters. Your vote will be counted. Enough with this fraud. Yes, we all have our doubts. We all feel like Trump won in 2020. Nobody's denying any of that. But do not let that deter you from voting. Because even in my district, I won 60, 60, 50. I was 61 and change to his whatever, 39. It pays to vote because even in my election, I had people saying, Vicky, what if people cheat? What if this? What if that? It doesn't matter. Get out and vote. Your vote will be counted. And this our country hangs in the balance with this election. Our existence, the existence of the United States of America depends on your vote this November. And anybody who is a Jew and I had Dov Hiken at my meeting last month, and he changed to Republican, but he told everybody, and the room was filled, and he said, anybody who's of the Jewish faith who votes for Joe Biden and does not vote for Trump is more or less not a Jew. Because you got to vote for Trump. It doesn't matter if you didn't like his tweet. It doesn't matter if you didn't like what he did with women. It's got nothing to do with it. It's got everything to do with the way the country ran when it was under Donald J. Trump. And we will lose this country if Joe Biden is reelected as president. And everything weighs on this election this November.
Well, and
Everything.
I would say that Republicans, particularly the GOP apparatus, that's who I'm
Right.
calling out, would be smart to follow the 2023 Vicky Palladino playbook and actually open their mouths, speak to Democrats, speak to independents, speak to the
Absolutely.
non-affiliated voters, and start getting them to support Republican candidates because a lot of the Democrats have failed the people. Vicky, always a pleasure, and I really want to
Thank you.
thank you for taking the time out to speak to
Of
the audience
course.
today.
Anything for you, Nick. Anything. Thank you very, very much.